We are, as a country, well on the journey to behavior change. The whole ODF program, I think, is absolutely on track. But as we begin to look more at the maintenance piece, of course, but treatment, I do believe it's abject failure. And as we enter into a phase where it could be the most expensive failure in history if all we've done is funnel the shit into a toilet only to stick it back into the field it came from. What an expensive exercise is that? The treatment, therefore, is critical. Now, rural level, the twin pit toilet is working well, fortunately, and hopefully will leave sludge that is by and large treated, which then needs to be utilized as it best can. And fortunately, it does have a whole waste to wealth agenda. The urban story, as you all well know, is still a disaster. I mean, if the capital city of India barely treats 50% of its shit, we have a serious issue. So, what are these areas that we would like to focus on today? Clearly, there's this whole, and I don't even think it's a debate anymore, but the fact that we are not covering our cities through the standard systems of the rest of the world. These huge sewage systems take 6 years to maybe 8, maybe 10 years to develop. They aren't happening, and we are just in this perennial role of catch up, going on this great, huge Western model of large sewage plants. So the solution must lie in some of what has happened in countries like Indonesia, Malaysia. There also, it's been a mixed success. It's not a huge success, so we have to learn from the failures too. But where can we actually provide for the smaller distributed sewage plants, and what are those models? And I would like us in India to create what those models might look like. And the good news is there are pilots, whether it's Devanahalli or in Leh, which are working. But is there also a model where resident welfare associations can be encouraged to set up the FSTP, pay for it, because in fact it is cost effective? And the numbers vary, but there can be a recurring cost of only 800 rupees a year. And if that's what it costs in terms of annual maintenance, it's not asking too much of middle class India to begin to pay for treating our shit. There are huge challenges around the land and where the plant comes up and the level at which it operates and who is going to operate it and the skilling. But the green jobs, I'll call them green, but those jobs are again a huge opportunity for us to focus on. So a challenge and an opportunity, and one which we absolutely need to focus on. What are these models? What is required to be done? Government is listening, so we can go in there. Different cities and states get it at different degrees of confidence, but let's get those pilots up and running and working in different modes. Everything that happens there is, of course, the issue also of financing. So it's about the operation, but it's also the financing. And those challenges are not small. So my one view is government should pay, because government was going to set up that large sewage plant anyway. So if now it's going to be a small plant, which is 1/15 or maybe 1/10 the cost, why should government not pay to set up the plant? But then hand it over to an operator, possibly. An operator who runs the plant for profit. But who are these operators? Are people comfortable getting a contract from the municipality and then find the rules change? So what is that ecosystem which allows entrepreneurs to flourish, who are willing to run and operate these plants for us as residents, for small factories, for those that don't set it up for themselves? And then, of course, the whole policing and compliance system, the policing and compliance system that ensures that the rules are met. Why does every building of a certain size tick the box to say it has an FSTP and it fails in 6 months. So how do we ensure that what is set up to run, and there's a price to be paid if it doesn't run? So this is a hugely neglected space, one where we need to focus on everything from regulation to finance to operation to technology, and one which India will have to reinvent the wheel and not necessarily copy the exercises which the Western world have taught us and which we have not been able to deliver on historically. So we also do big plans, but we need to look at the small ones. So on that note, I'm delighted that we have all of you here, and let's hand over to the experts to give us answers for all of these issues today in the next hour. Okay, over to you guys. Set you up for an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Nana, for setting the context. I'll now invite Mr. Ganpati, who is an infrastructure and sustainability professional and brings with him around 25 years of experience in the infrastructure sector spanning water and sanitation. I request him to join us on the stage. And I'll hand over to Mr. Ganpati to invite the panelists and take it forward. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to all of you. And thank you, Madam Naina, for setting a wonderful context for this session. As you know, the title for this session is Decentralized Sanitation and Fecal Sludge and Septage Management. Although a wonderful context has been said, I will take 1 minute to sort of highlight a few points, and then I'll call all the panelists on stage and ask them to introduce themselves briefly. So in this session, although it says decentralized sanitation and fecal sludge and septage management, we're going to primarily focus on fecal sludge and septage management. We'll talk about the broader decentralized sanitation question too, where we are largely going to refer to decentralized wastewater treatment plants, which are not the city scale or the utility scale plants, which all of us are familiar with, but we will talk more about the community scale, the sub 1 million liters per day kind of scale, which is in an urban context typically found in an apartment complex today or a group housing scheme and so on. We will focus our discussion otherwise largely on fecal sludge and septage management. Now, the strategic case for decentralized sanitation and fecal sludge management was explained by Madam Naina in terms of what's happening today. The absolute focus has been on trying to copy the West and set up the centralized systems. But increasingly, even as of 5 years ago, we wouldn't have heard so much about fecal sludge management or decentralized sanitation. But today, I think it's entered the conversation, the policy dialogue, and in many ways, even in practice, I think these have become, they're not yet mainstream or they're not yet popular. There's a long way to go, but definitely far more talked about and far more practiced today. Just to highlight the advantages of the strategic aspects, and I'll use the eminent panelists to delve deeper into this, because clearly there is a case that decentralized sanitation and fecal sludge and septage management approach is both from a capital expenditure perspective as well as an operating expenditure perspective much cheaper than the kind of centralized systems we are trying to create. So there is a strong economic case which we'll dwell a little more during the panel discussion. It is also much quicker to implement compared to the normal schemes, which normally takes about, as Madam mentioned, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, oftentimes much more to even get an approval for the budget and so on. Whereas this possibly can be done in a more like 1 to 3 years kind of time frame very often. So that is the second, the speed of implementation is a strong thing. The third is, it also enables reuse much more easily. If you talk of decentralized wastewater treatment, at the local level, you could reuse very easily. Whereas if you talk of city scale and utility scale systems, you need to bring it back all the way, to take it to a point and bring it back all the way. So many reasons. The centralized systems are power intensive, pumping stations and so on and so forth. So if much of the underutilization of even the assets created, even though the coverage is low, the utilization is even lower. So even though you might find 20-30% kind of national average, the actual utilization is probably less than 10%. So it's absolutely underutilized and not so well managed kind of asset. And it is definitely not working. I think that message is loud and clear. So the strategic case is quite clear. Today we will, through our eminent panelists, whom I will soon invite on the dais, we will explore and understand what's happening in decentralized sanitation and fecal sludge management. What are the kind of experiences so far? What lessons have we learned from that? And what kind of actions and suggestions we have for moving forward and making this much more popular and mainstream. With that, I would like to call the panelists, not in any particular order, but Manas from representing Boda, please come on to stage. Sashanka representing CDD Society, Nogesh Bharadwaj from Samhita, and Mr. Sunil Prabhu, if he's, yeah, please come, sir. And Madam Zaida, has she come? She's not come, I think, right? Yeah. And Mr. Chari. Mr. Chari? Yes. Like the last panelist, I will try and use this chair so that I can face you more easily. This position, I'll probably sit there. Please take your seats. Thank you. Maybe a quick introduction by the panelists themselves. Just highlighting your quick background and your connection with the wash sector. Maybe start with Manas from that end.
Hello. Hi. So I'm Manas Rath. I work with Boda and a little bit with CDD Society. Really what we focus on is engineering, design, and implementation of decentralized sanitation solutions. Also with a lot of focus on doing research, both on the technology side, but on the financing side, and different economic models and contracting models that government can use, and doing public-private partnerships in FSM.
Hi everyone, this is Nogesh Bharadwaj from Samhita. Well, almost 25 years of corporate experience working with Tata Power and Accenture. This sector finally hit me, and a couple of years back I started working with CDD in Boda, and that's how I felt that the need of the hour is to get the talent, the money, everything in this sector, because that's what is important. So yeah, so I'm representing Samhita, and we are very happy, very positive to work in this sector. We've recently launched the WASH platform, and I'll talk about it whenever possible, even during the sidelines. And I've got a few interactions with people, yesterday and today. So very positive, and I'm looking forward to the discussions.
Hi, my name is Shashank. I'm from CDD Society. There's not much to say. A couple of my colleagues have already said what we do. So we have been in the sector for about 15, 17 years. We are a technical organization. We provide engineering services. So we hit upon a small idea and implemented it, and somehow it's gotten attention beyond its original size. And that's how I ended up here, I think. So, yeah, thanks.
My name is Srinivas Chari. I represent Administrative Staff of India. Come with 20 years of teaching and advisory experience. My area of interest is water and sanitation. Currently, we are working with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, as well as two priority states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana.
Hi, I'm Sunil Prabhu, it's written there NDTV, but I'm not come here on behalf of NDTV. I come here to represent what I believe is a people's movement that we have started, and we are hoping to accomplish in the next 1 year. Basically, urban neglect that has taken place, and restarting and reactivating SPSs and ensuring that poshest colonies of Delhi. I don't know many of you are aware, but the CEO of Delhi Jal Board tells me that 70% of Delhi's sewage just goes down the open drain, and we are working towards that. And this is a people's initiative, and I'm the convener of RWS for Vasant Udyan, and I hope to share that story with you all.
Thanks to all of you panelists for that wonderful and short introductions to each one of you. Yeah, so I'll set the panel discussion moving. I talked about the economic case for decentralized sanitation and septage management. Would like to get into a little bit depth for the benefit of the audience sitting here, and I'd request Manas to actually give us some numbers about what do the conventional systems cost and what the alternates cost, and what is the strong economic case here for decentralized sanitation? Manas.
Sure. So I really look at the options. Once you get beyond the toilet, after the toilet, you really have sort of three choices, right? At a city level or a community level. I think you and Nena both spoke about the cost of the centralized sewerage systems, which typically cost anywhere from 10,000 rupees per capita all the way up to 25, 30,000 rupees per capita. They take 8 to 10 years typically to implement. And the bigger problem is they often only connect 20 to 50, 60% of the city. There's no city which has got 100% coverage of toilets through their sewerage systems, right? So I think it works for the wealthier cities. It works for very, very densely populated cities where decentralized options may be very cumbersome. But most cities that need those probably already have it. And I think, and the time frame and the cost of doing it is just something the government can't afford. And then 70% of those don't seem to work very well. So, although you build it, it doesn't work very well. And this is all government data. It's from the Central Pollution Control Board. And that's why today 80 or 85, 90% of sewage is flowing into the environment untreated, which is 40 billion liters of water every day, wastewater. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is fecal sludge management, which can be done very quickly. I'll talk about the PPP we did in Leh as a border with private parties. We implemented the whole system in 3 months. It went from first conversation to operations in 3 months. Cost about 650, 700 rupees per capita only. Extremely affordable. For most small towns, it's a budget of anywhere from 1.5, 2 crores to 4, 5 crores. And very quick and easy to do. And because you have a truck that goes around cleaning septic tanks, you are much more flexible. You don't have to dig up the road and build all this infrastructure. That's why it's also very quick. In the middle, you have the small-scale sewage treatment plant, which can cover a campus, a building like this, a small neighborhood, or a large hospital, hotel, school, even a slum community, and so on. Those, depending on the technology, would cost you anywhere from 3,000-4,000 rupees per capita to about 8,000-10,000 rupees per capita. The advantage of this is you can outsource this to the private sector, right? So you have apartment building or a commercial building. You build the STP, you run it. Government has to do the monitoring, monitoring, supervision, enforcement, and compliance with laws. But the capital outlay for the government is almost like down 98, 99%. So it's eminently, makes a lot of sense for the government to invest in this. Unfortunately, we are not seeing enough action on this front. And therefore, you find cases where people build the STP or they build a very poor quality STP. They don't maintain it very well. You're back to square one, and the government has kind of not acted upon it. But I think the next 3 to 5 years, that's going to change. It's coming. It's happening. So that's really it. I think, in terms of business potential, there's one more thing I'd like to throw out there. Our sense is that FSM itself will require an investment of $4 to $5 billion over the next 10 years. That's the potential for the companies that want to engage in this space. This is building the fecal sludge treatment plants, providing the operations and maintenance services of cleaning septic tanks, etc. It's probably $500-800 million of annual revenue once this infrastructure gets built out. We've got 7,000 towns and cities in India. 250 today have got a sewerage system. Our guess is in 10 years that number will go up to 400, no more than that. So you still have all those other towns and cities that will depend on it. And I think big cities need a combination. You can have a centralized sewerage system for the core of the city. Wherever there are big buildings, even in the core, have decentralized. It enables the water reuse. And then all the surrounding areas start with FSM and then increasingly build decentralized STPs, because STPs take care of your grey water and black water. That's why they're more expensive. FSM is only black water. It's a great start because black water is the real pollutant and the killer, but it's probably not enough. So you want to get to decentralized STPs. And that's why it's great that this session is not just about FSM, but really about looking at decentralized wastewater treatment and management and treatment.
Thanks, Manas. So just to highlight what he said, compared to conventional systems, which would cost somewhere around 10 to 20,000 rupees per capita, we are talking about 1,000 rupees probably per capita, 1,000 to 1,500 for fecal sludge septage management services, and maybe in the range of 3,000, 4,000 rupees for decentralized wastewater treatment systems. And so there's a pretty strong economic case. So next question is to Mr. Chari. In spite of the strong economic case, and I understand that this whole conversation on fecal sludge and septage management is new, but are you seeing enough traction, are municipalities still stuck in looking at conventional systems? If so, why is it sort of not gaining more momentum in spite of having a pretty strong economic case? What are the few strong limitations or stumbling blocks that you see in in further growth of fecal sludge and septage management?
I think I would sort of present a completely opposite
Sure,
picture
sure.
of what you're
Please.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, there are more than 6,500 decentralized wastewater treatment systems. In fact, EWOC just recently mapped 4,500 functional ones. So there are, my understanding and some of the business analytic data shows that there are more than 6,500 without much of advocacy. So as far as the decentralized wastewater treatment system, there's a very vibrant market already in place. It's out of sight, out of mind. Unfortunately, most of these conversations revolve around Delhi. And Delhi is a bad example to start with, actually, for any of these conversations. Quite a bit of work happens at the state level. For example, Bangalore itself has more than 3,000 plus decentralized wastewater treatment systems, because there is a very strong regulatory system, there is a very strong community pressure, which brings in some of these things. So there is already an economic case and there is a regulatory pressure in some of the states, and it's already happening. Now, with regard to the fecal waste treatment, septage treatment, that's something new. The advocacy has just begun. But I must say that, the traction is phenomenal. Again, I would say that it's contrary to the perception. It's just you go to a state and then if you just spend a couple of hours and certain amount of data, the state is willing to take on. For example, the state that in Andhra Pradesh, they want to cover all 110 towns by 2018, which said, it's not feasible. So we have to pull them back, that there is no private sector out there to support you, so we need to go in a gradual way. So we just had, we work in city of Warangal in Telangana. In just half an hour meeting with the principal secretary, he said he wants to scale up in 72 urban local bodies. Expression of interest has been released this morning. We went to a couple of, I won't name all the states, for example, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, who just took over 10, 15 days back to Ganga Mission. He wants to scale up in all the towns in UP. Of course, I said, CSC is already working there, so they're going to have it. So I think there is phenomenal traction thanks to some of the partners in this room, thanks to NFS Alliance. There is a phenomenal traction. I think the challenge is about meeting the expectations and lower the expectation.
Thank you. Yeah, I take the perspective, Mr. Chari, that we inside the sector see a lot of traction, but worthy for the audience to also understand what exactly is going on. And I'll just come to the point of actually what's happening on the ground also, and we'll talk more about it. So, Mr. Sunil, would you like to add something about the areas that you're working on, the community side of action, and how do you see citizens putting pressure and creating demand for decentralized systems and so on? Yeah.
So thanks a lot, and I agree with Mr. Chari that everybody revolves around Delhi, and everybody looks at this perspective. So, as I was saying in my opening remarks, 70% of Delhi's sewage system goes down the drain, and that too not treated at all. How many of you all are from Delhi here? I mean, just put up your hands. So, have you all been to? And how many from South Delhi? Okay, so if you know the geography of the area, I'm talking about Priya Cinema. If you're going down Nelson Mandela Road towards the malls, right? So we are talking about a 45-acre park which has been completely misused, unkept, and completely destroyed. There have been rapes, there have been dead bodies found, and this is the heart of South Delhi. So if you want to talk about apathy, that is a classic case. And when we talk about fecal sludge management, the first thing we did from RWAs, and we got all the neighboring RWAs who surround this park, that is Vasant Vihar, CBI Colony, CPWD Colony, Hillview, Munirka Vihar, Munirka Enclave, got the hotels along, the market associations, got schools, because there's a drug running racket there and everybody else. And the first thing we appealed, and this is where we thought that we'll get a good traction from DDA, was to set up an STP. Because we know about it, and we thought we should get an STP down there. But bureaucracy being it as it is, they said there is no proposal, this can't be done. Anyway, we chanced upon what is called an SPS, which was built in the year 1999. And it must have. SPS means sewage pumping station. It's not a sewage treatment plant, but an SPS, which is located in that area, in thereabouts, which was built in the year two decades ago, in the year 1999. And for various reasons, just refused to be started. I mean, it's still at present, and it's still, you can still go and see it. It is just not operational at all. So what we have done in the last 2 years is to work with Government of India through the Lieutenant Governor, through the DDA, through Delhi Jal Board, because Delhi has multiplicities of roles and authorities, to at least get this started. So from getting the electrical connection, from DDA ready to hand over to Delhi Jal Board, this is what we have attempted to do in the last few months. And it's in that context now that finally we are coming to that, what they call the last mile, where apart from getting electricity connection, the money, what is called a deficiency charge, is being paid because it's not been used for the last 20 years. DDA has to pay Delhi Jal Board, and they hope that once this is operational, all these posh colonies that I'm talking about, Vasant Vihar, Munirka Vihar, the Hillview Apartments, CBI colony, CPWD colony, and I'm not talking about the Jugis, the unauthorized colonies, that is the Yamuna, Pushta, colony, the Seva camp, and others. They now will be diverted to this SPS to be pumped from here to Gitroni, where hopefully it will be used as a big plant. But be that as it may, I still personally feel, and I agree with Naina, that we should have local STPs. If this could have been done at this level, it could have been a great main source for water for the park out here at the DDA, a 45-acre park. So it's in that context that we still hope someday that Government of India and development agencies will not be myopic and hopefully have a larger view.
That's a great example of, I think, citizens participating in reviving a defunct central scale utility, the pumping station, right? And just forgot to mention one of the strategic kind of advantages of decentralized systems, besides the potential for easy reuse, is the fact that the beneficiaries could actually become participants in the operations, maintenance, and very often even in ownership of these assets. So the overall upkeep and monitoring of these assets could be far, far better in decentralized systems compared to large city scale centralized systems. Please.
Yes, sorry, I just didn't add one point, and that is in 2 years ago, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, at that time the Minister for Urban Development, came and inaugurated, if you know, there is a JP Hotel, which actually gives us treated water to our colony, Munirka Enclave, where I stay. And for that, he made it an office order that all 5-star hotels should follow the same. So in our colony today, all our parks, we have 11 parks. Please visit it anytime. You're free to go there and just see it's all green. And we've got that water tested by Terry. It's some of the best water that can be used. It's a clear example that you can use this water, and this is called a real public people's initiative, because we had JP Hotel, we had SDMC on board, and we had the RWAs on board. So it really helps a lot of people. So just to show how that water can be reused.
Wonderful. Yeah, Shashank, question to you. I mean, we all share Mr. Chari's optimism about how the sector is taking off, particularly fecal sludge and septage management. But could you highlight what's actually happening on the ground, and do you see bottlenecks that are when it comes to actual implementation and actual projects coming up on the ground? And what are your 1 or 2 top suggestions or recommendations on how to move forward, or how to overcome some of these constraints or bottlenecks?
So I get to be the pessimist in the room. I actually share Dr. Chari's optimism. We've had the same experience in some of the other states. All these realities are true. That at the level of the state governments, they are actually welcoming fecal sludge and septage management, because they've been grappling with the problem of what sort of infrastructure to provide for sanitation for a long time. So to them, FSSM is the right product at the right time, at the right price point. and they would like to embrace it. So that's a reality. On the other hand, there's also this reality that you have to find land, you have to find the process by which you would approve a fecal sludge treatment plant. You would have to find a process by which you would bring in all the operators and give them an umbrella, a regulatory umbrella. I would like to call it a regulatory platform rather than an umbrella. So all of these are challenges. And then how do you sustain this? Because most of the times what we have noticed is the governments are very gung-ho about creating the infrastructure. And then we have to remind them that this thing needs to still work. And today, if you see in Bangalore, when you flush the toilet, only 50% of the water reaches the other end of the pipe for treatment. So we ask the question, when a civil engineer has laid nice pipes and still you're only able to get 50% of the water at the other end, how do you think 100% of the fecal sludge will reach the treatment plant on wheels when there are many human beings involved, right? So those are questions which need to be seriously tackled. And I don't think we have the capacities, we have the awareness levels, neither do we have the processes and the systems at the functional level of government to be able to take this up in a big way. But having said that, Dr. Chari's optimism needs to be respected, and we need to still keep pushing this. So, state of Jharkhand is stepping up. As a policy, they are saying we will only do FSSM, nothing else. So that needs to be respected, and we need to support them as best as we can. And so the things that we need to do, just to get back to the question, in the short term, I think we need to have single window clearances for fecal sludge management. We can't run around for a treatment plant that takes 4 to 5 months to build. We're running around for 8 months to get clearances and stuff like that going, right? So that needs to be cut down so that we can go faster. The PCBs need to be brought on board, and here Dr. Chari and the task force responsible for this, we're doing some work there, so hopefully that'll get traction. The monitoring systems, labs, they need to be on board so that once we do this, we at least get feedback that this is working and it's not going the way any other infrastructure in sanitation is going, right? We need to build capacities at the functional levels of government. So exposure visits, taking them, showing them what this means. That is a big component of this. Without that, they tend to balk at signing. The government is a huge procurement machinery. And for them to procure something, they're taking a personal risk in putting their signature on a file. To de-risk and to give them the confidence that yes, you can sign on this and nothing will come back and bite you in your retirement, we need to give them a certain amount of assurance. And that comes when they see things working, when they see things on the ground. And so exposure visits and things like that are very important. We've seen them work very well, actually. So, these are some things which can be done immediately. But this is not a problem that's going to solve by creating infrastructure. We talked about that. So, massive levels of capacities need to be built across different sectors at different levels. Why? Today, if you look at the academia, there is no master's level course on sewage. The master's level courses are umbrella courses on environment. You cover water, air, land, all sorts of things in 2 years. So you have a semester of this, semester of that, semester of that. You're not really a master of anything. We need master's courses on water, on sewage. So today the mainstream narrative of a civil engineer is, I will put a pipe, I will carry water, I will treat it. And that's a narrative we are trying to get away from, because 80% of the country is not in that. So just to put this in people's minds will take a lot of effort, and that needs to be done, starting today with some professional level courses for existing engineers and at high level master's programs and so on and so forth. So the rest, I'm sure you can imagine that it's a huge gap that needs to be filled. So we need to do many things surrounding this sort of capacity building efforts. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Shashank. That was a nice summary of the present situation on the ground. Nogesh, I'll come to you for the role of corporates, but just to keep a thread going, I'll probably. Shashank talked about exposure visits and showing people that things are working on the ground. So let's just spend a little time on trying to understand what have been the success stories so far, what's happening on the ground in terms of actual projects. So we could talk about, maybe starting with all the panelists who are familiar, starting with Mr. Chari. Warangal has happened and few other projects that you're familiar with. If you could, not taking too much time, but just talk about what are the actual projects that have happened on the ground and what are one or two key takeaways from that. And we'll go from Mr. Chari onwards to the other side.
Yeah, I think, as I said, there's a certain amount of traction in terms of projects with regard to treatment plants. There is already a vibrant private sector operating in an informal environment. I would also call them as projects, but they're operating without much of a regulatory system. So many states now, including where we work, Warangal and Andhra Pradesh in general, they brought a very interesting regulatory system to streamline the process, what Mr. Shashank mentioned about. It takes a little more time. Now, with regard to projects on the treatment side, fecal waste treatment plant, as I said, it didn't take much time for the government to sort of agree and put out a request for proposal in Andhra Pradesh for 76 fecal sludge treatment plants in 7 clusters, each cluster having about 10 projects or 10 towns, standalone projects forms a package. And there are 7 packages as I speak. They are actually out for competitive bidding. These are called hybrid annuity model, which is a little different PPP structuring, which we have learned over a period of time from road sector, experimenting in the sanitation space, had the little bit of experience in drafting in the context of Ganga Mission, where Haridwar and a couple of projects, STP projects went through hybrid annuity, not in the FSTP, it's the first time. The reason we went for this, just to cut short this, is to lock in the commitment of the private sector. Unlike in solid waste management, many operators have come and they build the project, and then when it comes to operation and maintenance, they just exit the system because it's a painful process. It's easy to go for EPC, then operate and maintain the system. Hybrid annuity model makes them to commit for the life of the project, in this case 10 years. So 76 projects, FSTPs are at the RFP stage, and we need to really, we are struggling to find private sector to support this. On top of it, just now, today, 72 projects from Telangana has issued for expression of interest, not RFP, but expression of interest for 72 projects. So this is a situation, and many states are rolling out, starting from Jharkhand and other places. So the need of the hour is, just to summarize, 2. Number 1, we need to incubate, we need to strengthen private sector capacities to support this journey, number 1. On the other side, to manage private sector, to manage this process, we need to strengthen capacities. Now, it's easy to say build capacities of the municipal system or the state, because there is no institution available for managing FSM. Whose capacity I should build? They all belong to the solid waste management. There is no structure available. So some states and some cities have taken the initiative of creating what is called non-sewer sanitation units within the municipal system. NSS, as we call, non-sewer sanitation system at the state level, non-sewer sanitation at the town level has been created in a couple of places. In fact, last 3 days or 2 days, CDD hosted the capacity building of NSS cell of Warangal. They have spent 2 days there to understand. A 7-member team went there. So we need to create institutional structure, not just capacity, and then build capacities. But equally important is, how do you create capacities in the private sector to respond to the demand of the municipal system, is something we need to really spend time on.
points. Shashank, action on the ground, if you
Yeah.
could highlight.
So taking right off from where Dr. Chari left it, building capacities of private sector units. We recently, or we're just about finishing a plant in Jhansi, Uttar Pradesh, which has been done by a private entrepreneur. He was desludging pits and septic tanks in Jhansi, and he'd heard about fecal sludge treatment, and so he came forward and said, "I have a little bit of money. Can we do a pilot demonstration? I'll put my own money." And so he's set up a treatment plant there. So private sector engagement in fecal sludge treatment plant is a very big necessity, and it's one of the fastest ways of ensuring that whatever momentum is there gets translated into reality. So other traction on the ground, the ADB is supporting a couple of plants in Rajasthan. So those are still work in process. Couple in Odisha with support from Practical Action.
And of course, the Devanali in operation for a long time.
Yes, Devanali has been in operation since 2.5 years now. We are now privatizing the operations of the plant. So the money for O&M will go directly to a private operator. And so that's the next step for Devanali. And Leh, of course, we'll talk about.
Leh, Manas could talk. Nogesh, you have something to add on Maharashtra, what is happening and so on?
Yeah, so as compared to the panelist here, I am actually the new kid in the block in sanitation. Don't go on my hair now. Our experience in Samhita and our interaction with the corporate houses. So traditionally, yes, the corporate houses have been very generous. They have been helping support society as a whole, giving it back to the society. But what we have recently experienced or during our interactions with the corporate is they have not just been merely writing checks. They actually have been very participative. They own the program. They are hands-on. They would want to understand who are the beneficiaries, how are they getting it. They want to understand the impact being done and assessment of the same. So they're very cognizant of the fact that yes, not just building infrastructure is enough. We need to go beyond. We need to work on the behavioral change aspect, capacity building. But going back to where we were like 3 years back, if we see, it was a daunting task even to create infrastructure, right? I mean, it was looking as if we want to scale Everest, but like taking cue from what Naina said, we've already achieved the build and use, and maintain. So we just need to ensure that we also need to work in the same vigor and ensure the treatment part. But yes, although we have we've achieved build, use, it is still, I suppose, the base camp of Everest. We still have the bigger height, which is the treatment part, and I'm sure we can do that within the group here. But the challenge would be to, like what Sasanka has said, to get the corporates, involved in the process to support the treatment plants. So because of the sheer size and the persistence of this sanitation challenge, although despite the efforts that we have been making over the years, it's actually prudent for to create a platform, a very informed and knowledge platform where the corporates can actually know, understand, and take an informed decision on who and where to support, which are the projects, which are the NGOs, which are the partners who they can help. So that's how our limited effort that we have done. We have created the platform, ISCAC and Samhita in partnership with the CEPT University and support from BMGF and the Government of Maharashtra. Government of Maharashtra, recently we had a meeting with the secretary. He's been very supportive. He said, yes, go ahead, whatever support or letters, approvals required, we would do that. So that's very encouraging. We we have created the platform which we would encourage everyone in the room, and even through you, we would want you to, send out the word that this is specifically for ensuring the corporates get into the business of FSM. We marked 50% of the projects have to be FSM for FSM within the platform. So we are very positive. We're very enthusiastic, eager to ensure we would do that. So the point where I would want to further elaborate is.
I'll just interrupt. I'll come back to you on corporate role a little more, which you could highlight again.
Sure.
I'll just continue with the thread of saying what's the action happening on the ground. Maybe highlight Leh. You just mentioned it, Manas, but that's another operating plant. So if you could in 15 seconds just touch upon the impact it's created in the period of operation.
Sure. So Leh was very interesting because we are a private party. The government really wanted to get the solution done. I think the biggest roadblock is intent. I think everyone wants it, but when it comes to putting in the hard work of getting what you want, I think that's where things completely fall apart, right? And it takes much longer than it should. So we had a local government that was very intent on getting it done because their sewerage system was taking too long. They have a tourism economy, and they were starting to see groundwater pollution from septic tanks. They couldn't wait 3 more years for the sewage system to be up and running. And we said we could do it in 4 months, which they loved. They gave us land, they gave us a truck, and they gave us water before the contract was even signed. They made us start building before our entire system was designed. So we started construction here while the finishing touches were being put on the end of the system. We had a team working from midnight to 6 a.m. to midnight every day for 40 days. And the military guys there, the military engineering services chief is a colonel who's an engineer. He said, we couldn't have built this in 40 days if we had to, which was pretty proud for, pretty good for our team. Since then, we also run the desludging part. And I think this is important because it doesn't stop with the treatment plant. We run the truck that is owned by the municipality. We have a team of 5 people there. We schedule the cleaning. We respond to calls. We have keeping capacity utilization at actually 110, 120% of capacity and sort of monitoring it to make sure it doesn't choke and clog. But we have treated 400,000 liters of sludge in less than 3 months of operations. We had to shut for the winter. And the hotels are happy because they know that they're protecting the water supply. They're willing to pay us for the services. We are going to households now. It's actually working really well. If I can just take 1 more minute and talk about PPPs. So this was a PPP where we invested all the capital. We have a 5-year contract with them. 90% of what the customer pays, whether it's a household or a hotel, 90% we keep. 10% goes to the municipality to be spent on other awareness building and other programs, right? So if we don't collect the money, we don't get paid. If we don't provide the service, we don't get paid. So it's complete alignment between the municipality, us, and we did a lot of sessions with the hotel owners, with the households, with local business communities. And they really understood. And I think because it's a tourism economy, plus Leh is just generally very, very environmentally, whether culturally, philosophically, religious-wise, very environmentally friendly, right? So they were like completely on board. Like, we didn't have to sell them the idea. I mean, they came to us. They took 3 trips to Bangalore, inviting us to Leh to say, look, come and do something here. So again, I come back to the intent is very important. Now, for a successful PPP, you need the funding, both from the government side and the private sector. And I think the hybrid annuity model is brilliant. What Professor Chari is pulling off in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, that's really the way to go. But we don't have much financing for the private sector on these, right? People don't understand what FSM is. We are working on actually setting up an investment fund to fund companies across the sanitation space because very little financing is available. You need operating expertise to actually do the project. And I think here there's a big gap. We keep talking about capacity building, and I'll take a slightly contrarian view on capacity building, right? I think one is you can go around teaching everybody something. But look, FSM it's not rocket science. It's actually very simple. We took 4 guys, trained them for a month in Bangalore, sent them up there. We sent some technical experts to help them for a few weeks. They're running it beautifully. They're doing a great job up there. So it's not like you need this whole massive movement of capacity building and teaching and training and education. But yes, I think you need good quality players with the right intent. And I think there we need to get large players involved. And if you're talking about doing thousands of cities, billions of dollars of investment, it is not something for startups and entrepreneurs and even mid-size. I think mid-size players are very important, but they're also often very slippery. They'll try and cut the corners they can. It's very hard to catch hold of them in terms of compliance. municipality doesn't have the skills to monitor people or catch somebody's neck. I mean, I would love to see, big companies, I mean, like a L&T, for example, right, get into this game, commit the money, because the money is there, the business is there, they can move the system, they can get your one-stop clearance, they can invest at scale, they can finance the system, and they can deliver that service. And the third thing, of course, is that you need an overall planning and management, which I think is very easy to learn. Like I said, it's pretty simple. So I'll take a contrarian view. I think instead of spending so much time, I think the capacity building on government has been done. Alliance has done a wonderful job. I think we all have worked very, very hard and done a brilliant job. I mean, I would say I can't think of any other sector that has seen this kind of emergence in a short period of time in India. But I think now for the operationalization, we need to get big players involved. I think they'll bring the quality, they'll bring the resources, they'll bring the credibility, they'll improve the engineering, and I think they will deliver the end solution. Thanks.
The reason I'm rushing a bit is we are standing between lunch and I think
this is more interesting than lunch.
Definitely for us. I hope so for the audience. So bear with us. We'll come to the audience for questions. Before that, one last question from my side, which is specifically the role of corporates. I think Nogesh started talking about it. Nogesh, if you would like to add 1 or 2 points, you get the first opportunity. Precisely, what can corporates do to break some of these bottlenecks that currently are in the sector? I have myself one thought, but all of you please go ahead and talk about it first.
So my view,
just one line, 1 point or 2 points from everyone. Okay. That's it, and then we'll go to the audience. Yeah.
So very precisely, I understand I'm between you and lunch. Specifically, I would say the corporates are open to any ideas. They're happy to support innovation and any small specific solutions. However, like Manas said, everyone in the room here, we need to pitch in and make them understand FSM and the need for our. So that's the little step that we need to take beyond their acceptance. And I would like to add here that many a times we've seen the corporates are ready, the NGOs are there to do the work. It's just that the bridge, the understanding, the money is there, the project is there, but they're not looking to each other at all. So that's where I think we need to work on. Thank you.
Sunil, I'd like you to say if you have anything to say on this.
Well, I won't talk about corporates, but I actually believe that it's the people ultimately who will be able to perform and ensure fecal sludge management or small STP plants take place. I say this because many years ago, nearly 2 decades ago, I worked with the water and sanitation program, and I worked on a good sector practice report about basically toilets that had started off in West Bengal. I mean, the Ramakrishna mission, which finally got mentioned in the UNDP report. And then I talk about areas like Orissa, which had a different model altogether, which was entrepreneurial. Then there was Allahabad and Banaras, which were totally different. And finally, Howrah. So it's in that context, today, it's now become a people's mission for everybody to have a toilet. I was happy to read a news item where people haven't been paid in Jammu and Kashmir their salary unless they have a toilet in their house. And it's in that context that I think might not be in the next 10 years. I'm quite sure, and I'm very hopeful that if the people and non-governmental organizations, RWAs, as Naina was saying, if people start paying a little bit, or at least the government subsidizes it in a horizon of the next decade, I am quite confident that STPs will become a matter of, decentralized STPs will have to take place.
Wonderful. Specifically, corporate CSR, any more points from the panelists?
Well, single message from my side is just come and make money, and but provide quality service, because if you mess up one project at this stage, the credibility of the whole sector will get screwed up. So my request to corporates is make money, there's big money, but deliver the first project on the ground. Apart from a couple of projects, we already done it. I think it has to be quality. Solid waste management took a big beating because of bad projects, bad corporate interventions.
Any more points? Otherwise, I'd like to say something here. I mean, Shashank spoke about how it's very difficult for people in government to take that step to sign off on something that they're not familiar with, right? The first So every time people come and visit our plant, they want exactly the same thing so that they can say that, we are just copying something that's already working. But in reality, this sector needs many more contextual solutions. And I think that's where I'm hoping that CSR and corporates could do that little bit of risk, the higher risk sort of grant funding required. And much of the grant funding today is not available for asset creation. And most of them are financing advocacy or capacity building or policy work or so on and so forth. Very, very little grant money directly funds assets. So it would be great if CSR money can actually help take those, set up those pilot projects, model projects, look at sponsoring a project which can showcase a new technology or something of that sort. I think there's a clear role for CSR, the way I see it, to sort of lead the way, in showing and demonstrating. Manas, your quick one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm itching to say this. Yeah, I feel we need to get out of that CSR and pilot frame of mind. I'm telling you, this is simple stuff. You give me $4 billion today, I will cover India for you in the next 10 years. That's my personal guarantee, right? I think government balks because there is no clear funding allocated for this. So when you say you want to do it, it's cheap, yes, it's low cost, but where's the budget? There's still, for every $1, it may cost $1, but there are $10 of demands on that every dollar, right? So even though it's only $1, it's not clearly there, the money. Second is, I think at a state level, you need somebody who's responsible for FSM. Once it disappears into the whole urban development department, it kind of gets dissipated and the energy is not there, right? So you need somebody focused. If this is going to be done on a mission basis like toilets were done, this should be handled by a team of people who then understand and maintain the continuity for the next 10 years to achieve the goals. And thirdly, get companies in. Look, today, if I go and tell the government, please do FSM, this is my technology, this is what I'll build, how I'll operate it, he will say, do a pilot, show your credentials, who are you, what have you done before, etc. If a big company who is doing infrastructure, who is doing billions of dollars worth of projects says, I will go and do it, they're not going to have the same questions. They will say, fine, go do it. Just show us what it is. And the conversation, you will cut short the conversation. This whole CSR thing needs to go out. This is not a CSR opportunity. Technology is there. Enough is proven. Enough is done. We are not inventing something new over here. We just need to execute. It's a pure 100% execution problem. So we should get out of this whole, take out the risk. There is no risk. What is the risk? There is no risk, the way I see it.
So minus 100 projects, you are going to bid for it.
Yeah, somebody should give me the money. Somebody should give me the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Huh? Who's giving me the money? Somebody said, I'll give you the money, right? Who said that? No, but look, that's the problem.
Good time.
See, but can I just make one more point to that? See, if when you do a competitive bidding and you tell me, do this job at the lowest price possible, I have to cut corners. I'm not going to have that buffer to do innovation, correct what goes wrong, and do it well. You give me 25% more than the L1 tender, and say, Manas, I will hang you if you don't do it. We will do it.
Manas is not even L1, it's QCBS. 80% technical, 20% financial. All for you.
Somebody has to give us the money.
I think I will close this. Before I move to the audience questions, I want to wave this white paper in front of all of you. The organizers have asked me to point out that there is a septage management in urban India providing conceptual clarity. This is the title of the white paper, prepared by the India Sanitation Coalition and Susanna, Sustainable Sanitation Alliance. This is kept outside and requesting people to pick it up as you go out. Now I turn we have 5-7 minutes maybe to close, and then we can break for lunch. Yes, please. You spoke in the last session, so I'll ask him first. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, sir, for putting this brochure. I would like to introduce myself. I am Rahul from GIZ, and I am the corresponding author for that paper.
Wonderful.
And what really came to my mind when writing this paper is, what is that not really being talked about in FSM? So what you will see there is really conceptual thing which you will never find in any national document or state document or talked in any other papers. Now here I have really touched upon very conceptual questions. And this is the first version. The revised version is again there. So you can check with Shipra then when the revised. So I have put some questions there. I will put one question here for you.
Please.
So why we talk about ODF plus or ODF plus plus? Because we know ODF is not enough. I was very happy to hear that when Manas said FSM is not enough. See, this is not somebody tells you. This is not really talked in the sector. Everybody is talking. FSM is the buzzword. It is the trend, but it is not enough. Why? Because it treats only the solid content. Why we are not talking about? So see, if we have FSM, if we are talking only about solids, so we are talking about something cleaner environment. But there is this overflow or the supernatant effluent from the septic tanks or the grey water, which is not covered under the definition of FSM. Then what happens? we are not looking at a complete sanitation solution. And this is not, as an environment person, I am not supposed to do that, right? So now what is happening with the partners where we work, I've been working in 5 states. The what is their sense is FSM is a magic. It is a new trend that is a cheap solution and that will solve all the problems. And it is 10 times cheaper. But they are not seeing the future. The future would be cleaner rivers, but not really cleaner towns. So we should not talk that FSM is, we should clearly make it that it is one of the solution and it is not a complete solution. And I was very happy to say that here, that when Manas said that it is not enough. We are not really talking about that. And your response to that, if you say like, yes, it is a complete solution, then yes, I will love to hear your response on that.
Yeah, very quick response, Mr.
I think it's very
He's
clear. I
making
mean,
more of a
nobody
statement.
is confused about it. I think
Correct,
it's
correct.
we need to communicate probably. The theme clearly outlined by the organizers is decentralized treatment system. It's not just FSM alone. So when we are talking about decentralized system, it looks at both liquids as well as solid. So it's very, very clear that it is not just about solids that we are looking at it. We are looking at clean environment through a combination of decentralized as well as fecal sludge treatment plant. I think that's a message.
Yeah, but the statement that you made is more of a statement than a question. I think it's a very valid sort of statement. Good, we'll all read your paper, surely. Yours.
I'm Alok Bharadwaj. I work in solid waste management, both at the corporate level, bringing in a lot of foreign technology, and also at the grassroots level, like Mr. Sunil Prabhu. My question is to Mr. Manas. What do you say, and what is the opinion on sharing the experience of other countries who have successfully evolved a good decentralized system and a sewage system, and also on funding from foreign organizations?
So funding from whom?
Foreign. So there are a lot of foreign funds coming in, and are they coming in successfully, and what are the impediments?
So I think the big foreign funds you find is like Asian Development Bank, JICA, etc., which are still, there's still the multilaterals still have to work with government, and government is still largely focused on the centralized solutions. It is just starting to trickle down into FSM and into decentralized. See, decentralized STP is really the private sector issue. I think the government doesn't need to think too much about investing to get started, but they need to good monitoring, good planning, good implementation of the existing rules, which is not happening because municipalities are busy, they're corrupt, all kinds of things are there, right? But I think that's actually the easiest thing for them to do is to enforce decentralized sewage treatment systems. With regard to FSM, other countries, I think, so India, we're going to have 100 million toilets dependent on septic tanks and soak pits, right? That's multiples of any other country out there. The best example, I think, is Philippines, which is called Manila Water. It's a private enterprise. It was set up by one of the large business groups. Imagine like a Tata or a Birla's of Philippines saying, look, we can't have all this dirty water flowing into Manila Bay. And they set it up as a not as a business. They set up a contract with the government. They do they rebuilt all the septic tanks, because even in India today we know septic tanks are very poor quality. They don't do the treatment they're meant to. They do the scheduled cleaning of the septic tanks, and they run the treatment plants, right? And I think that integrated model, while it's difficult, is really the way to do it. You've got India Water in Malaysia, which has also been quite successful, but they've got certain gaps because again they split up the responsibility amongst too many players in certain ways. But I can talk more.
Yeah, actually, this question will require, if you talk of international examples, you can go on and on. Yeah, please, go ahead.
This session was a music to my ears. Thank you so much. Role of private sector, no need of piloting, go and grab the opportunity and so on and so forth. Very simple question for Dr. Chari. You're an expert of training people. I would request, and there is a call for action from my side, that train private sector to understand the technology landscape and the business models that are associated with FSSM. The reason that I'm saying this is I've worked with 200 ULBs, everybody is demanding it, and I have no clue what to tell them. I said, take my latrine and thank you. So you have to really understand there is a huge demand, and I think you as a master of trainer, of training, you have to come forward and do this for us, and even if that is for a charge, we assure you that we will go out and establish it in hundreds of the cities in the country. But, at least we should know what to do.
Good. Thanks for that response, Chari. Last 2 questions maximum. Last one? Okay. 1 question, please. Okay, please go on.
So yeah, my question is to Manas. He spoke about how do we get the large private sector enterprises like L&Ts or the Thermax in. And Shashanka brought out that, we're still a long way to grow to go to build that confidence capital in them. So what's the way forward to getting these big enterprises in, because that's how we'll reach scale.
Yeah, I'd like Sashankar to respond rather than.
Chari sir is showing the way in AP and Telangana. Let's see the outcome of that. That's an experiment in my understanding. What he's trying to do is a bold step forward, and we are hoping, all of us together are hoping that the big corporates will come in response to this call. And let us see if that happens, then we have the solution, and that's it. So we could go out and ask them, or we could show them the opportunity and see whether they come. And now we have created the opportunity. Let's see if they come. Yeah.
Great. I think we'll close this session. I've had enough warnings from the organizers. So I don't want to say much in summary. Great. Thanks. I hope all of you enjoyed this session. One last remark, which is, I think as Rahul was pointing out, this is not a single solution. It should coexist with decentralized systems. And I think the centralized systems also have a role to play. I think they are the legacy that we have inherited. And I'm sure in certain contexts, in high density situations, you would still have all kinds of systems. So I think the future is about some kind of a multi solution, whatever is appropriate for that context. Thank you. With that, I will close the session. It's been great to moderate this session, and thank you all. And please, let's go for lunch and final announcements from the organizers. Thank you.